There we go. Um, yeah, I'm gonna do some coverage of Shapeshifting Reptilians by David Icke. Talk a bit about David Icke's Shapeshifting Reptilian stuff. So, present. Share screen. There we go. Kind of talk about the conspiracy of the shape-shifting reptilians. This knowledge needs to be departed.
Hello. No one is available to take your call. Please leave a message after the tone.
John, Mike Donovan here. I want you to stop working on the missing person story. I got a call from the CPS and a bunch of other organizations. We're going to sue us if we print. Just let it go, John. I'll talk to you later. This is the last time, John. If I hear you're still working on that story, you're out of here. I warned you, John. Look, I'm sorry. I gotta let you go. Be careful, John.
In the United States, close to 1 million missing person reports are filed every year. Whilst many of those reports are filed as protocol, quickly resolved and closed down, a worrying percentage of those are never even investigated. As I began my investigation, it quickly became apparent that there was a disturbing nature to these disappearances. And as I pursued each lead, I found myself embroiled in something I could never have expected. Little did I know that I would be contacted by a very covert, secretive individual who would blow the lid off what many of us believe to be the truth about our world. As you are reading this, you will not yet understand the very taboo nature of what we're dealing with.
I look at the alternative media, as it's called, which is where a film like this would come out of. Obviously, it wouldn't come out of the mainstream. And what's developed over the years that this alternative media has come into being, what's developed is the alternative mainstream. And almost everyone has a here and no further point. And just because you are aware that there's a banking scam and a political scam and engineered wars doesn't mean that your mind is open to the deep in the rabbit hole areas that will explain where all that's actually ultimately coming from. You will have people who will go so far, but then their belief system, their sense of credulity, will say here and no further.
Well, I think it's like a kind of human archetype. Unless you're a small boy with frogs in your pocket, people don't like toads or snakes or crocodiles or alligators. Dragons sometimes are shown as friendly, often are shown as dangerous and fire-breathing and nasty, and they've got little eyes, and they are inhuman. They've got little slitty eyes, and somehow there's a part of that that doesn't resonate with us.
To think that reptilians even exist, let alone that they're in some way controlling the populace and what's going on, just seems so far out there to the normal person with their programming and their paradigm and that type of thing. So I think it's just out of the realm of belief for them, just through their programming.
The idea that life as we know it has only developed on this one planet, in this one slither of frequency, is ridiculous. But the human perception has been so programmed with limitation, with a sense of I can't, the sense of it cannot be, that it's left to very few, compared with the global population, to explore beyond that sense of can be. And that's why these films are not made in greater abundance.
Creatures with large heads, with fur and big eyes, like the traditional puppy dog pictures that make us go, look, isn't that cute? One doesn't look at a reptile and think, isn't that cute? That basic human empathy just isn't there.
What I do is I open my mind and let the information be my guide, and that decides where I go, not preconceived idea. And unfortunately, preconceived idea, belief, whatever that may be, is the prison cell for most people, and that's why they don't go beyond it.
I think there's a lot of ego involved in this subject, as there are a lot of others, and that type of ego is infected ego, as far as I'm concerned. And the last thing these entities want is to be noticed. They want to be ignored, because if they're ignored, they can get away with it, you see. So you want to infect people and let them think that there's no such thing, and actually try and spread that there's no such thing, so that these things can operate in the darkness.
This is programming, and David Icke talks about this, a societal programming wherein we are conditioned to hate and fear this subject so much that without something extra, without something more unusual happening to us to cause us to search for this darker truth, people will be inclined not to see it, even if it's right in front of their face, which is what I've experienced. And even people in my own family and people that I know very well and people who were interested in ufology, when they saw this, either didn't see it or became very upset about it.
In the early 90s, when we were first learning about the reptilians, you tended to hear about cases of rape and situations like that, and almost like an instinctive fear that some people had in response to just being in their presence, just like a physiological reaction to them. So I think all of those factors, plus the bad reputation of snakes in Judeo-Christian mythology, has given them sort of a bad reputation, and that led to maybe a bit of a taboo in discussing them, but I don't think that the taboo is really necessary.
The gentleman I will call X in this article has always refused to give me his name. Of course, that was highly suspicious, but he was giving me important, and in some cases, classified information. I felt compelled to continue my investigation, even though I knew what I was doing was very dangerous. I never really questioned the validity of what he was telling me. Somehow I knew it was the truth, no matter how uncomfortable that made me feel. Sometimes X handed me documents, photographs, or newspaper articles to follow up. Other times he would drop a name into a conversation, only giving me pieces of the puzzle.
John, I can't just tell you what's going on. Those are the rules. You have to research this information yourself. I can give you places to look, people to see. Look up the work of Professor John Mack.
It was a synchronous event in the sense that I think anyone knows what I mean, is that you find out something just prior to experiencing it. And I'd read a couple of books a couple of months before. One of them was Dr. John Mack, the book Abduction. Now, Dr. John Mack, some viewers may know, is a gentleman who was a university professor of psychiatry at Harvard University. He was exposed to quite a number of people with experiences. He was a skeptic, did all the psychological testing, and he finally, in his 2 books, was firmly in the conclusion that these were real. These were real extraterrestrial encounters. I also read the book Communion, which is a classic with Whitley Strieber, talking an author again of sci-fi fiction, who also said he'd had experiences. But the first person that came through my door that said, "Mary, I've heard you're open-minded," is a gentleman called Ellis Taylor. And Ellis came to me via a friend, and the friend had told him I was open-minded. So he came to me really wanting to tell me about something. He said, "Mary, there's no support groups for this. For this, they just think you're a loony." And here I had a middle-aged, very articulate gentleman who was telling me quite normally that this is what was happening to him, that he was aware he was being taken up on spacecraft, that he was waking up with shaved areas on his body, other marks on his body. His whole family were affected. That was his partner and the children. He talked about going through walls. And he said no one would come to the house because they thought it was demons.
On the 13th of April in 1996, I got up about 7 o'clock in the morning, went to the loo, came back to bed. My partner went with the covers off me. "What's all that all over your body?" And I had all these marks on my body, and I couldn't quite make them out, but she was really freaking out. And there was a face there, drawing of a face. There was like something there that looked like a tail or maybe a paw or something that I didn't quite make out. And there were finger marks here in a strange configuration. And they were all red marks, and none of them had any impression. They were just completely smooth. And then I was burnt all the way around as well, all around the rest of my body, bright red. My partner, as I said, was freaking out. She rushed to get her camera and came back and started taking photographs of them. And meanwhile, I looked in the mirror because I couldn't quite see what they were, and I could see what she was talking about because it's very distinct, these things. And she took photographs of them, and very shortly after that, they vanished.
Part of it is the 3 questions they ask me is, am I going crazy? Is this real? And if it's real, why me? 3 crucial questions. And so it was, okay, Mary, you better find out whether this really is real or whether a lot of people are just having a very, very interesting, unusual experience that, is more, they believe it's real, is the favorite. Oh, well, if they believe it's real, then it's real to them, which is the biggest cop-out you can ever get.
I started having experiences with greys 2012 and 13, like mid 2012, and it's continued now, but up to 2013 with major things that have happened. And I sort of got like flashbacks of seeing some of these beings. And then I started to remember I used to see beings in my mum's house and my stepfather's house between the ages of 8 and 12, which is the time that I was in this particular house with my brother, who also has had experiences. But I didn't see him as demonic. I didn't see him as angels. I didn't even see him as good or bad. I didn't have no reference for what I was seeing. But I never really talked about it full stop. It was sort of like, oh, here's something weird. And I'd pull up the sheet over my head and just hope that whatever it was would go away. So, yeah, it goes back a fair way. I'd contacted a lot of people for support or just to talk to about what was going on because I was in the thick of it. Mary was the first one to respond. What got me with Mary was, and later looking back especially, I could see how her intent for helping me out was pure, and it wasn't about showcasing me. It was all about me, support for me, my health, my well-being, and just to, keep me grounded was the main thing that I needed. She's been there, again, since day dot. She's always there for me to talk to, no matter what about, how far out. As she says, the more weirder, the more wonderful for her. And I'm forever appreciative for her being in my life, just like many of us. And our friendship continues to grow, and it's gone in some weird and wonderful directions that I didn't expect. So, yeah, she's a lovely lady, and I'll forever be indebted to her.
What I was amazed to discover was many of those that had this experience, when they began to understand it, often their fear went. And often it's the fear of the unknown than what actually happened. And so I had to isolate, is it what actually happens that scares them, or is it the fact that they don't know what's happened? So that's two separate things. So in my whole panorama of those having experience, for example, only maybe 25 to 30% are actually traumatized. And what amazed me, there were people eventually coming to me, and this is where I had to broaden my questionnaire, that saying, look, Mary, we're not frightened of the ETs. In fact, we think they're family. What scares us is being on a planet with humans that are so barbaric, they still kill one another when they have a disagreement. It's actually really hard here because I know I come from a place where we don't do things like that. I feel like I've been dumped on a primitive planet. I don't like it. I've always felt isolated. I feel like I've been adopted in my own family. I don't even feel like I connect to them. I feel like my family has, I've got something to do here, and this is why I'm here. And these I call the star seeds or star kids, because their real connection is actually to those intelligences out there than actually the human beings that they're operating or sharing their environment with. So, in that sense, this is a huge, huge panorama of experience where some are terrified of the beings and some actually think the beings are family. So, where do you go with that? Or, only recently I had a young woman tell me that she was a hybrid and that she believed that she was part human, part reptilian, for example. So for her, what was hard was being in a human body when she related much to her reptilian soul, if you like. That's how she saw it. Others believe that their soul is from a mantid, which is an insect-like being. The felines, the cat being, for example, they say their origins are from those places. So they relate to that particular form. And if you have an 8-year-old that tells you that their family is a mantid, this is an insect-like being, that's his family. His human family is here to look after him and he loves them, but that's his family. And when he dies, that's where he's going, to his ancestral family, which is the mantid insect-like being. And he gets quite emotional about it. This is an 8-year-old getting emotional about going back to his origins. It's very profound. And you've got others that believe they're a mix. And, Simon Parks is one of those, because I was able with this young boy, which I'll call Paul, and Simon Parks, I was actually interacting with both of them at similar times, although one's in the Northern Hemisphere, one is in the Southern Hemisphere. They never spoke to one another, but I was able to get information to look for corroboration. And Simon Parkes believes his mother is a mantid, although he also connects to the cat feline beings and to the reptilians. But he feels most connected to the mantid. And he talks about going into his mantid form on the spacecraft and working with humans. And when I spoke to this little 8-year-old, he described it in this way, that he evaporated into his mantid form and would operate as a mantid and then come back into his human form. So here is a little boy talking about a soul transfer.
One of the questions that pretty much all experiencers ask themselves at some point is, why me? Another one is, am I going crazy? But eventually they figure out that they're not crazy, that whatever they're experiencing, they're still functioning, and it's not, it's not a form of anything. John Mack certainly was not able to identify it as any kind of psychological pathology. So they ask, why me? Why is this happening to me? And well, we know that the abduction phenomenon does run in families, and the same thing seems to be true for reptilian contact. So you can look at reptilian contact as a facet of the UFO abduction phenomenon, and it suggests a genetic aspect to their interest in us. But, in addition to following family lines, there's more to it. A number of reptilian contactees have actually recalled memories of having a past life as a reptilian. And, it doesn't appear that people are chosen at random out of the human population. One reptilian contactee described to me what she calls multi-dimensional simultaneous existence, because that time, basically, if you look into physics, ideas like the relativity of simultaneity and the concept of space-time, turns out that everything is happening now, including past and future events. Everything is really happening all at the same time. So past lives and future lives exist now. So what in reincarnation traditionally would think of as past lives, well, if you think of it as simultaneous multi-dimensional existence, those are really parallel lives. And there's situations, for instance, in dreaming, where consciousness can move from one of these parallel lives to another. And that explains why there is a connection between us and these other lives that we're living as reptilians. And it explains why some of the interactions go on.
My first experience that I'm aware of was when I was either 4 or 5 years old in Texas, where I encountered a brown being that was levitating in my bedroom, and it had round eyes, kind of a wrinkled face. If the viewer looks up the book Alien Jigsaw 2, the researcher supplement, I think it's called, by Katarina Wilson, she has a drawing in there of a being she describes as a type 2 gray. And that's pretty much what I saw, except it wasn't gray, it was brownish. And that was the first consciously remembered. Actually, it wasn't conscious. I remembered it consciously for many years. And as is the case with many other abductees, suddenly I've reached a certain age where I just forgot all about it. But prior to that, I was telling everyone I could about it, right? But then a point came in time where it was wiped from my conscious memory. Years later, after I moved to San Diego and became a member of the San Diego UFO Society, I had a hypnotic regression about some of my experiences. And although nothing new came up, what happened was my subconscious was kind of jarred and shaken around a bit, because like a day or two after I had that, what I thought was an unsuccessful hypnotic regression, I was reading a book called Project Omega, UFOs, NDEs, and the Mind at Large by Dr. Kenneth Ring, if memory serves. And at the end of that book, he has a questionnaire to determine if someone has had alien abduction experiences or not. And I basically answered yes to like 17 out of 22. And I got triggered when I had one question, when I read one question that asked, as a child, do you recall having experiences with little people or little friends that no one else could see? And then just as soon as I finished reading that question, bang, that memory of when I was in Texas, when I was 4 or 5 years old, came back. When I came back from Germany in 1990, I had a series of UFO experiences and abduction experiences culminating in a abduction, full waking consciousness at night, when those 3 reptilian greys came and they took me up into their ship and they put me on a examining table and they did all this other stuff to me. And that was just one of a series of events. And then I was frustrated living in the San Francisco Bay Area because I had no one to talk to about these experiences. So when I moved to San Diego and joined the San Diego UFO Society, suddenly I could talk to other people about it. I can even talk to others who've had similar experiences. So it was a simple transition for me to become a researcher, because what I realized in my studies was after I had that full waking consciousness experience in September of 1990, when I came back from Germany, I immediately started researching the subject in earnest. Now, I'd always been interested in this subject, always been interested in Bigfoot, the Bermuda Triangle, other dimensions, so on and so forth. That was stuff I took for granted, including the subject of UFOs. But there was an element of me for years that was kind of scared of the UFO subject. There was something about the subject that gave me the creeps, that didn't that I couldn't quite understand, and that gave me a certain degree of fear. Like when I was in high school, for example, I would see beams of light, bluish white light, come in through the ceiling and do a search pattern on the floor. I had a lot of experiences where I was taken out of my body astrally, and I've since come to find out that a lot of these experiences happen in our astral state because these beings have the means to trigger an out-of-body experience within us. It's a multifaceted experience. It's not just physical abductions. It's astral experiences. It's what's been described as dream hacking or astral dreamscape manipulation, telepathic experiences, so on and so forth.
When an alien creature of any sort interacts with a human, 9 times out of 10, or 9.999 times out of 10, that human is going to be terrified of this creature. There is no long association with these creatures. They cannot appear as they look, because the human will just freak out, and whatever the purpose that they've come to that person for, they won't be able to do it. So they will come in disguise, and they don't physically change their body. They go into the mind of the human, and in the human's mind they change. Now, because of my very long association with these creatures, they don't need to do that now. In the early days, they did, when I was a very small child. But also it was a part of me accepting them for what they were. So as a 5-year-old, or even 1963, as a 3.5-year-old child, I was shown exactly what they looked like. And it did freak me out. Of course it did. But, if you take a child that's 3 and stick it on an aeroplane and fly it from, I don't know, Birmingham Airport to London Airport, by the time that kid's 10, it will go from Heathrow to JFK with no worries, because it knows no different. If these creatures don't harm you, you have no reason to be scared of them. So it means that my perceptions are going to be more accurate than somebody who's half scared out of their mind, has their body frozen and can't move. So no, there are shadow creatures that are genuinely shadow beings. There are jinn that can appear like shadow creatures. And all of the entities that we're discussing have the ability to go into a human's mind and make that human think they're seeing anything. That's why Adolf Hitler got Dr. Mengele back in the late 30s to attempt to do work on humans that would prevent aliens from gaining control of their mind. And this is when Mengele just went completely off on his own tangent and ended up working for the Illuminati in America. But it originally stems from Hitler saying, because he was in contact with the Aldebaran off-world group, how can we have soldiers who can prevent all the information being taken out of their mind by these aliens? So that's where all this research started from. This is what totally scared the Yanks. So for most people who have an alien experience, they really don't know what they're seeing, because they can only see with their eyes and believe what's happened to them. When you have an association with these creatures, and I can't be the only one, but when you have a long association with them, you have certain agreements, and these creatures are not permitted to deceive me. And I say I'm 54 now, and I haven't lied to me yet, or I haven't caught them out yet. So they're either incredibly good liars, but when I ask a straight question, I usually get an answer, or they will refuse to answer rather than give me a lie.
The revelation that the ever-growing missing persons reports were somehow connected to alien abduction phenomena seemed ludicrous to me. There was something inside of me, an inert feeling to repel the information, and I didn't know why. As a researcher and journalist, it is built into my psyche to question everything I'm told. When I raised my doubts about this one evening in a taped conversation with X, I could never have prepared myself for what happened.
Sorry, but I can't have you screaming like a little girl, so you've got to promise me you'll be quiet. If I wanted to harm you, you would be harmed. John, please. Sit. You needed a reason to take this further, and I just gave it you. When I did this, I put both of us in danger. People like you don't need people like me unless it's important. We consider you important, John. You're not special. You're not the chosen one. You're not the savior. But you're a hell of a journalist, which is good for us. Bad for you. What, you think this story was your idea? We needed to trigger you. That's what we do, John. We poke you, prod you, coerce you, make you do things we can't. Well, not openly anyway. For now, just know some of us are trying to help. You got a friend in me.
I was in America on a speaking tour. I say a speaking tour in those days. A speaking tour largely meant talking to myself. You know, I mean, I went to Chicago and spoke to 8 people, or near Chicago anyway. But on that speaking tour, over a period of about 15 days, I met 12 separate people, and I was going to a different place every day, who told me the same basic story, how they'd seen humans turn into a reptilian form and then back again. And it was such a common theme that they were describing that I started exploring from that time. So it came into my life very quickly. I'd had kind of heard like little mentions of it before and just let it go. But in this 15-day period, that really focused my mind. So there's something to look at here. When you're faced with that situation with, or you know, one person after another in different parts of America telling you the same thing, you can either go, I'm not going there. What will people say if I start talking about this stuff? Or you can say, information's my guide. I'm going there. What then happened is I came back from there to the Isle of Wight, and I was meeting someone, actually not very far from here, who had been married to a Satanist. who had been the warden for Burnham Beeches. Burnham Beeches, out west of London, is owned by the City of London, the financial district. And it is a big place of Satanism and very strange happenings. It's wooded copses and few open areas. And she asked to meet me because what I was writing about, because she wanted to tell me about the Satanism which she experienced. And she told me when I met her about seeing Ted Heath, former Prime Minister of Britain, took us into the European Union, doing a satanic ritual at Burnham Beeches, because she lived there in the warden's house. And when this conversation was finished, and I was having a cup of tea, and I was just finished my tea, and I was putting it down and turning to go, and I just said to her as a throwaway line, I've just come back from America. I mean, all these people that kept telling me how they'd seen people turn into reptiles. I heard her first, and I turned around. She's going, "Oh my God, oh my God! I wasn't going to tell you about that." She said what happened was she saw lights and she took the dog out that night.
All right. What is this about?
If you wish to spell, will you start tilting, please? We'll go to the alphabet A, B, C, D. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Let's see this up at G. Will you please rock twice for yes and once for no? Is it G? Rock twice for yes, once for no, please. Is it G, the first letter, please? Once, twice. Okay, next have the second letter, please. Start spelling. A, B.
Who are you talking to, Mr. Herbert?
Well, we don't know, do we? Presumably one of our subconscious minds, one of us. Or maybe all of us, I don't know. Anyway, this is not a specialist demonstration, it's just scientific. A,
this is
B, C, D, E, F, G, H.
Some strange goings-on have been reported from a pub in Wiltshire, and the widely travelled ghost hunter, Mr. Benson Herbert, has come to investigate.
We've got a couple of fireplaces here. They're all right. It couldn't produce any odd sound, I suppose. Was there much wind these nights, these days?
The days, no.
right, now we're playing with the Ouija. Are you playing again or no?
She said no.
Okay.
My name for her.
Alrighty. Come on, Mindy. All right. Are there any spirits here that want to contact us? Only good spirits, no bad spirits. Please. Is there any good spirits here that want to contact us?
What is your name?
G. R. E. M. E. Grim? Cream? Are you a good spirit or a bad spirit? Put yes for good spirit, put no for bad spirit. Are we bothering you?
How did you die?
J. A. Y. J.
Were you murdered?
How old were you when you were murdered? Maybe I like y'all better.
How old are you?
Seven. 2. 72? What year did you die?
What year did you die?
Oh, 1. 8. 3. So that was like early on. No time near today, right? Let's see. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye.
Oh, shit.
No, I'm not playing anymore.
All right. Actually, I'm not getting much stuff going through. Let's see here. All right. I guess that's going to be it. I don't really know what the election is going to be. Presume Donald Trump is going to win. At least that's what most sources say that's going to happen. But Kamala Harris could win. So who knows? What is this about? This is the Jolly Heretic.
Let's be clear. Prison works. It ensures that we are protected from murderers, muggers, and rapists. And of letting people out of prison will inevitably and has already started to increase crime. In essence, prison works. Why does prison work? Because prison, particularly if you do it for minor offences as well as major offences, takes the people who are criminally inclined off the streets. And it takes those people off the streets, that is to say, criminally inclined young men, off the streets during their most fertile, their most active, their most high testosterone, their most aggressive years. And it takes them away from society, and thus it reduces the crime rate. It is that simple. In much the same way, we know that in the early modern period, you had execution for almost...
Yeah. Let's see here. Trump is leading pretty significantly. Trump has 54.8%, 988,367. Harris has 44.6%, 805,204. So that's what's going on right now. That was 2 hours ago. That was about 2 hours ago, and that information came out. Yeah, I do not think that my vote matters. I am not inclined to vote. That's all I'm going to say. What the heck is this shit?
To sexually assault a waitress. I watch it all the time when I was a child. I had a VHS tape of it, but I can't find it, which is disappointing. But I would watch that movie.
Here. Sorry, I'm in America right now. I'm taking in American cuisine. Yeah, that's my daddy. That's my father.
Anyway,
my father had to leave the room. Don't worry, guys. He's just going out to buy some cigarettes. He's fine.
And so apparently the Daimo doesn't want to call in to.
Yeah, because he's a coward little babe. He's a cow. He's a babe. And he's not sexy like Shaggy.
Stop. No.
So sexy. We're gonna sleep in the same room.
We are not going to sleep in the same. But
well, it is just whatever. Whatever, Shaggy.
Shut
Whatever floats your boat, baby.
Anyway, let's see if
It's the same room, dude.
What's up, everybody? Icy Games here, and today we are playing Shagster Online 2. Now,
I haven't heard this in a long time.
What appeared to be a starfish. All the fabulous people on the internet. Hello there, ladies and A-logs. Is me again. Yeah. I'm going to make some wonderful poetry.
No, thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mr. Shaggy. I don't want to hear your poetry, Roo. I no need to hear your poetry. No need to read your poetry. Okay, it's been almost an hour. Nothing's going. Yeah. Wonder if YouTube has shadow banned me or something. Let's see here. Ethan Ralph is still live. 18.4K views. Yeah, obviously I'm never going to be getting those sort of views. At least not on YouTube. But if I could ever gobble up views like that, fuck, man. Man, I totally grift. I totally be grifting for sure. Yeah, I'd totally be a grifter if I had those sort of views. Yeah, I think that Christianity is a lie. I think the church has lied to the people, and I don't need religion. I don't need organized religion. It's just whatever it is, man. All right, I'm out. No idea what the election cycle is going to be. I would say it's going to be Trump for sure. A straight up Trump win. He's not going to keep none of his promises, though. People just don't learn. Like, dude, people are going to be dumb no matter what happens. Like, people are just going to be stupid. They're going to vote for the dumbest candidate possible, just because he's the most popular and the richest, but not the smartest.